So this story begins with a bit of an issue in qualifying. Here we are at Spa in the GTEs in the RFactor2 Competition System, and what I've been doing quite successfully is I'll let everybody go out and I'll wait till they get to sort of 2/3 of the way through sector 2, round about the sort of the entry to Campus Malmedy section just after Pujon, and then I'll exit my pit box, and I find I'm exiting pit lane with about 40-second gap behind me, and in this instance I've got about a 60-second gap ahead of me, so everything looks fantastic. So here I am, I've done a lovely empty out lap, but I've come around here on my hot lap and somebody else has had a problem and come back to the pit lane and re-exited the pit lane, and here he is just up ahead of me, and this is not on the plan. So I've checked, the gap is about 7.5 seconds, but it's getting very, very small very, very quickly, and I think here I'm probably 3 seconds behind as we exit Ravage and enter the corner with no name. And here we are in Pujon, and he goes around. Now the mass of the car is heading to the right, but he doesn't put his foot on the brake pedal, and that little gap that I nearly had disappeared. And we'll have another little look. There's a nicely waved yellow flag. Well done to that marshal for reacting so quickly. And the car in front of me has lost it in Pujon. Now there's no blame on him. It's an intermediate race and people will make mistakes. He didn't do anything stupid, didn't do anything deliberate. He just wasn't able to get round the corner. But that little gap, I had to decide whether to go left or right. I decided to go left, and here we are, pretty good view. There's a big enough gap there for me until the car starts rolling forward. So there's a little lesson there for everybody. If you have a big spin and you're on the racing line, leave your foot on the brakes, please. So that did not augur well for qualifying. That was the end of my attempt. Yeah, with only a minute 15 left at that point, there is no way I could return to the pits, exit and get an outlap done. So I had to settle for what I thought would be starting plumb last. As it happened, 2 other cars did less laps than me, and that put me 9th on the grid. My qualifying PB is a 15.2, and I can regularly do a 15.3, 15.4, so I would have had a good shot at the front row, but here we go. So approaching the final chicane behind safety car. The Ferrari on the left there looks pretty feisty. He's been warming his brakes quite aggressively on the outlap, so I certainly don't want to risk anything with him. And I'm on the right-hand lane, and I'm going to stay right because it's a lovely, safe place to be. Here's a head-on shot from the same moment. The whole field gets around La Source safely, and I managed to dive under the Ferrari for P8, which was very, very satisfying. He doesn't get a really aggressive launch out of the chicane, and I don't know whether he's playing it safe or planning an early braking zone, but I hung to the right, brake off the rubbered line, get under him quite safely, and head flat out down towards Eau Rouge and Radion in 8th place, hoping over the following laps to maybe make up a few places and hopefully get up as high as 4th or 5th place. And oh my God, look at the carnage! It's carnage at the top of Eau Rouge and Radion. And I'm in 3rd place, 4th place. Passing that car gets me into 3rd place, 9th to 3rd in Sector 1. Better go back and have a look at what happened. That's the head-on shot, absolute carnage, and I think that's 5 cars out. Onboard footage to see exactly what happened, and just too hot into the entry of Eau Rouge, and a bit of a lift on the approach to Radion, and that destabilised the rear end, and it was all over, bouncing off the wall, and I think there were 5 cars involved in that crash. Here's a spectator view, what it would have looked like if you'd been in the stands, and it was a spectacle. Eau Rouge Radion taking no prisoners. So I'm getting over the shock of suddenly being on the podium, having started back at grid as we enter Sector 2, Lap 1, and here the finish of Lap 1. You can see the first car and second car ahead of me here. The leader took off, had absolutely fantastic pace, but as we can see here, I'm gaining quite quickly on the car in 2nd place. I actually have raced against this driver before, and I know he's a solid driver and a very fair racer. So I'm just assessing the potential here to combat and hopefully pass this car. and I certainly can tell by this point I have more top speed. It's clear that he's running a fair bit more aero than me, and most likely running the standard aero package. I'm running the Le Mans aero package, different set of aero levels and much longer gears. And at Spa, I think the balance is in favour of that. Now, a couple of laps later, and somebody's exited the pits, have apparently had a problem. Now, this is always a moment of trepidation in the high-speed sections here at Spa, lap 4, and we've got to ask ourselves, what is this car going to do? What is his racing awareness and spatial awareness going to lead him to do? But fortunately, he very wisely judges that well, moves to the right, lifts or short shifts ever so slightly, and we're both through. And I'm getting closer and closer. This is now later the same lap, and this car ahead of me is doing okay in sector 2, as he should, with his aero, but he's not really pulling away from me. So I know I've got a massive edge on the faster sections of the course, and I'm sort of holding steady through sector 2, which is the turny part of the course. So I just know now, we'll fast forward ahead here, I just know now that I'm going to have a good chance to attack this car, and then the question is, when will I do it? So lap 4 here, I'm not in any hurry. There's 10 more laps to go based on the pace of the leader, and I'm just assessing here my opportunities. I'm faster in this section here. I could potentially attack into the chicane, but I want to show every courtesy to the other driver. And so really I'm in a phase here of sort of aggressively trying to harass and intimidate and potentially force an error, which doesn't happen. That car behind us was the one who exited the pits. The rest of the traffic on the same lap as us is quite a way back now. So I believe this is now the start of lap 5, and once again I'm very, very close to the bump with this car. And what I'm going to do now is I've decided to attack on Kemmel Straight by getting a really, really fast exit out of Eau Rouge and Radion. But I'm potentially a little bit too close, and I do not show enough respect for the dirty air, and it is all over. And Eau Rouge Radion have claimed another victim. I think that's 6 cars out of 11 met their end within 50 metres of each other there at the top of Eau Rouge and Radion. So a lesson learned. We can never get too complacent. That was my steering lock to go straight, so I decided it was not worth going around and getting the car repaired. But looking at that result sheet, maybe I could have got it repaired and still got in the top 6 or top 5, but so it was. Huge impact on my driver rating. The system expected me to win that event, and when that's the case, you need to at least get on the podium. But a couple of lessons learned, I guess, and I had the amazing thing of a disappointment in quali, amazing thrill of getting through to 3rd place on lap 1 due to others' misfortune, and then my bad judgment having me end up in 7th. But you can see there I lost about 30% and slid back into Silver 1 category. But it was certainly, it was a slice of life, a slice of racing. It was interesting going, and hope you enjoyed the summary. Thanks, see you next time.